Hello, everybody. Welcome back to today's episode of Things I Wish I Knew About. And I am very excited about this one. I think you guys are going to be very excited about this one because this one's a little bit more creative. Sometimes, these episodes are all over the place, but this one is like fun for me. So my guest today is Laurelle, and we are going to talk about all things astrology, the stars. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some yoga, what have you, birth charts, all the things. I'm going to make you define everything because I don't know any of it.
Love it.
Thank you so much for being here. You are where right now?
I am in Berlin.
Berlin. That is bananas. So she's originally from Toronto, so a local gal, but on the whole other side of the world. Is astrology a big thing, like worldwide? Is Europe into it?
It depends. Like, I feel like Berlin, yes, because I feel like anything goes. I lived in Portugal last year, though, and not so much.
Yeah.
Wasn't as big there. So it's kind of different everywhere. You kind of have pockets of people who are into it, but I would say it's mostly worldwide. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess there's different, like there's like the Chinese horoscopes, and it just depends on the region of the world, I guess,
exactly.
that
Yeah.
you're in. So why don't you give us a really quick brief? How did you kind of get into doing what you're doing? Because you are teaching now, or and you're reading. Tell us all the things you do.
All the things I do is too
All
many
the
things
things.
all the time. I am an astrologer, I'm a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, and I dabble in the beauty industry as well. I'm sure I'm missing something. I also just recently did my end of life doula certification, so I'm
Oh, wow.
break into that as well. But how I got into astrology is, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, I was always into astrology. I always read my horoscope. I loved being an Aquarius. I thought we were
Same.
yeah, loved
Same.
it. I actually found out one time that someone was like, "People don't like Aquariuses," and I was like, "What?"
Well, how is that
I
possible?
was like shocked. I was like, which is like so like, of course, like people wouldn't like a sign, but I was like, "But the Aquarius?"
Of all of them.
Exactly. But yeah, so anyway, so I was always into it, and then I signed up for an intro to astrology course right before the pandemic at the
Oh.
Rock store, and it was supposed to be in person, and it of course ended up being online, and I never stopped learning then. And maybe it was like the best time to learn, to be honest, because I had more time. And
Yeah.
learning online actually proved to be so much better because you could share a screen and you could have the recording and like look back on it later. So it ended up working out in my favor. But I started, yeah, in 2020 and I haven't stopped learning since. Like I still take courses there because
Yeah.
there's literally always something to learn.
I'm sure. I am kind of just I'm not studying it so much, but Rosanna, our mutual friend, has kind of started reading my chart and introducing me to it. And there are just layers upon conjunctions upon words
Yeah.
that I don't even know.
It's so complex. Like even I was shocked. Like when I first started learning, the first intro class I did, I was going in like only listening to things that related to Aquarius because I only wanted to know about myself as such an Aquarius thing. And then I realized how complex it was. And I was like, oh no, I have to go back and like understand all of the signs and like all of the complexities because I was like, this is far more advanced than I ever gave it credit.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just saying before we started recording, I was saying I, for a very, very long time, have not been into astrology or the idea of astrology because I found it difficult to believe that, like, my wife and I, for example, are both Aquarius, which I now know is Aquarius sun, but
Mhm.
we're both Aquarius and are so different, like just completely polar opposites. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Just because we were born kind of in the same time of year, we should have similar traits. But now I understand that there are many, many levels to
Many,
this.
many. I
I'm
will
gonna
say,
sh
like,
Yeah, go.
Aquarius is unique. Like, I've never met an Aquarius that is the same. Like, never.
Right?
No, they're all so different.
Yeah, well, that's one of the isn't that one of our things? It's like we're all like eclectic and, I don't know,
Exactly.
weirdos, a little bit weird.
Weirdos. Weirdos. Definitely weirdos.
Yeah. That's how I identify.
I mean, same. I mean, I can layer this on later, but as a Pisces rising, it softens my Aquarius a little bit. So
Yeah.
people don't realize how weird I am until they start to actually get to know me.
You know what? My sister says that all the time because she's like, "You're such a loser, but you're funny, so people don't know." And then it's too late because they got sucked in, and I'm like, "Ha ha, burn on you."
Oh my God. So good. I love that description.
It's true. So, okay, so I'm going to just kind of rapid fire questions at you. Not rapid fire, but I'm going to ask you questions that I have always wanted to know. And then kind of maybe I think other people would kind of want to know as well. So, just from a broad perspective, when we say our sign, our horoscope sign, we're looking up based on our birthday. That is our sun sign, right? So, what does that mean?
So when you are looking up your horoscope,
Yeah. You're like, I was
you
born Jan.
when you're looking up your sun sign, that's
Yeah.
based off like the day you were born. But what's important to know is that horoscopes that you read, you should actually be reading for your rising
I
sign.
know that's the worst. Listen, Rosanna told me this and I was devastated
I
because I
know.
was like, I'm an Aquarius. What do you
You
mean?
can read for both. They are traditionally written from the right, like that's how you write them from the rising sign. But the reason why it defaulted to sun
Yeah.
is because most people don't know their time of birth, and you need your time of birth to get the rising. So they just simplified it, basically.
Okay. So she told me that. So I'm a Libra rising. And she said, this is what you need to be reading. And I was like, I don't identify with that at all. Like I am not balanced. I'm not, like I am not that guy. But she's like, you are. You're reading the wrong thing. So the one thing I guess people need to know right off the bat is to explore your rising sign. If you can find out the time you were born, because that's critical,
That's
right?
critical. The time you were born is critical, and the thing is when people are like, "Oh, 8 a.m. or 10:30,"
Yeah, not
they're
enough.
usually not enough. Obviously, sometimes people are born at the exact hour and on the half hour, but the minute makes a huge difference. Like when people are like, "Oh, I don't know, between like 8 and 9," you're like, "No, it can completely change
Right.
so drastically within that period of time."
The whole point of that is that we know the time we were born, the exact time we were born, because the planets are shifting, right? So wherever your, I don't know, placement is within that chart is going to be altered with Saturn, Jupiter, like all of the planets are going to affect
Uh,
your chart.
like you can't get where the planets fall in the chart without the rising sign.
And it can be as much of like the tiniest little bit of a difference if it's 5 minutes, right? Like one
Yeah,
could
even
move.
like for me, for example, I have an ascendant at 29 degrees, and 29 degrees is the last degree at zodiac sign. If I was born 1 minute later, I would be a different rising sign.
Crazy, right?
Crazy.
It really is critical that you know exactly. Okay, so we're reading our rising with our sun sign.
Yeah, you can read both. Like I read both.
You still feel Aquarius.
I do. I still feel Aquarius. I will not gonna lie, like having studied astrology for as long as I have now, I put more weight on my Pisces rising, so the Pisces
Mm,
horoscope, but I still always layer on the sun onto it. Like I always layer the sun horoscope
right,
because it still matters. It's
right,
still there. It's still impacting you. It's just usually when people are like, I read my horoscope, it's not right. It doesn't sound
right.
like what's happening. It's usually because it's not
You're
the
reading
right.
the wrong one.
Yeah.
Pisces is kind of close to Aquarius, though, isn't it?
It is, so it works in my favor, to be
Yeah.
honest, like, it yeah. It really works because they usually, to be honest, the way that Aquarius horoscope is written, which you'll probably relate to, and Pisces, is they're very, like, woo-woo, and
Yeah, totally.
it's always like a story, and I'm like, "Can you just tell me what it is?" So they're both kind of always, like, dreamy-like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And I think for me, I know this is not about me, but Libra is just so far. I guess they're all air sign. Okay, wait, we're gonna get into that. Hold on.
But the Libra is actually close to Aquarius, so that actually
Because
because
it's
it's
an
the air
air.
sign. Yeah.
I know. Okay, so wait. So we do the big 3 is our sun sign, like our main sign, and then our rising sign and our moon.
Yes.
And that is the actual moon, like our moon.
Yeah, the moon. The sign the moon was in when you were born.
And what does that affect?
So for first I will say too with the time of birth, your time of birth is off, your moon sign can also be off as well. So that's also important to know because it moves so quickly. The way I always describe it to astrology clients when I first meet them, and this is like kind of surface level, but it gives you a good understanding.
Mhm.
And I always say that when you first meet people, your first impression of them is the rising sign. That's the first energy that you're meeting. Then, once you start to have a conversation with them, you start to get to know them a little bit better. You start to peel back the layers. Then you start to get to know the sun sign energy, the way where the expression is like really coming out. And then once you get like establish like a close relationship with an individual and it becomes more intimate, then you start to understand the moon sign. The moon sign is one of the most complex
You know
because
what
a lot
my
of the
moon sign is?
what?
Gemini.
That's not bad.
Isn't it?
No.
I feel like Gemini gets a bad rap because it's
Never
like
mind in Scorpio.
you're ju
That's not a good
ooh,
placement.
that's a sexy sign, right? That's a fiery, sexy
It
sign.
is a sexy sign, but technically it's in fall, so technically it's not a good placement. Technically, Gemini is a better placement for the moon.
I don't even know what that means. I'm like, Rosanna,
That's a lot of air you have
I'm
going on.
all air. I'm triple air.
Yeah, triple air.
So for people that don't know, there's the elements, right? So
Yeah,
there's earth, fire, air, water, and
yes,
each sign goes with one of those elements. So
exactly.
what does that kind of mean? What do the elements have to do with astrology?
The elements are a big component, to be honest, because, like, for example, I don't have any fire in my chart, which shows up, like, which I'll explain of how that shows up. But basically, like, to have a balanced chart, you kind of want all four, basically, because it
Balance
helps.
the goal.
It's not the goal, but it helps you out a little bit
Okay.
more. I
Okay.
would say that most people don't have a balanced chart. It's just it's like nice when you do. It works fluidly then. So like for example, like fire signs can be more like impulsive, more courageous, more initiatory, like it's taking action. Water signs are more emotionally in tune, they're more intuitive, they're more in their feelings, probably easier to like they make decisions probably based on emotions as well. The air signs are very much intellectual. So they
Mm.
intellectualize a lot of things. They're curious. It's hard to keep them grounded because their thoughts are always and there's like ideas always forming.
Always just no follow through.
Yeah. And like conversation, connection, it's like very
Yeah.
extroverted, like
Yeah.
the air. And then the earth signs are more grounded, they're more stable, they don't like change. You
Mm.
typically, they're a little bit more fixed in that regard, but they usually like to build something that's like long lasting.
Okay. So those will just kind of affect, I guess they'll affect the signs differently depending on kind of what
Because
you
then you
have.
also have to layer on the elements with the modalities as well, because that's also a component, because the modalities are like cardinal, mutable, and fixed.
What does
So
modality mean?
so it's basically like a category that the signs get put in. So cardinal signs are more like again, it's like an initiative energy. It's like starting a project, like exciting, like new beginning kind of thing. Then the mutable signs are more like adaptable. They're like really good with flexibility, moving things around, changing environments, new ideas, communicating, kind of even like adapting their energy to meet what's there. And then you have the fixed signs that are stubborn, very stubborn, do not like change at all. Kind of has like that grounding element as well. You have to kind of mix that all together. So, for example, you have an
Okay.
Aquarius
Yeah.
who is a fixed air sign. So, even though it is an air sign and it intellectualizes things, it is fixed. So, it is a little stubborn and it doesn't really like change, even though an Aquarius would probably not agree with that.
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all. I love change.
But you also have Gemini and Libra in there, so that helps you a
Right,
lot.
right, right, right,
But I would say that the Aquarius would lie and say they don't like they're fine with change, but they would probably get flustered more easily.
right. My
Yeah.
God, there's so much. There's so many layers.
There's so many layers. That's why like when people are like, I don't believe in astrology, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like it's
You're
fine.
like, you don't know. You don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
Okay. So somebody comes to you, let's say they don't know anything. They're going to be like, I'm going to dabble. I want to see what's going on. Here's my thing, whatever. What's the first kind of thing you're going to do with them?
So if they're like a first client, never had an astrology reading before, the first thing I always do is I try to teach them a little bit about the chart
Right.
because astrology can be very overwhelming when you first start with it. So
If you've
I
looked
always,
at a chart, I don't know, I don't have an example, but if anybody has ever looked at an actual chart, it looks like I'm on the ocean and I have like a
yeah,
sextant and I'm trying to map the stars
yeah,
from
it
the
looks like
middle.
math. It's
It
math.
does look like math and it's got squiggles and pie charts all over it and it's
Yeah,
so confusing.
exactly. So I always kind of like first I always ask what their level of astrology knowledge is.
Yeah.
Then I kind of go over the chart. I tell them like everybody has all 12 houses in their chart. Everybody has all 12 zodiac signs in their chart. Each house is a theme and it kind of lays the stage and then the planets are kind of like the actors on the stage playing it out kind of thing. And then the planets obviously have their own meaning and then the signs have their own meaning and then you kind of have to blend it all together basically,
Yeah.
which is a lot. So then I always start with what they want to know. Like I was like, do you want to know more about you as a whole or do you want to kind of know like the energy and how it's moving right now because your birth chart never moves. It's never going to change. It stays exactly as it is because that is where the planets were when you were born. But you can layer on the transits on top of that, which would be like an outer wheel, and it shows you the planets that are moving now and how they're interacting with your chart.
So
But
each planet has an energy. That's your spirituality. So if it's moving through my chart at a specific time, that might affect how I feel, how I deal with things, how I move through my day or make decisions or
I mean, I will say Neptune is an outer planet, so it moves much slower. Probably
whatever. For Mars, I feel like it's always in
but, like,
retrograde, right?
yeah, use we'll use the personal planets as an example. So like
Okay.
Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they move the fastest, and the
Okay.
moon. So they'll impact you on a day to day, like on like more
Oh,
obviously,
really? Because they're moving through my
because
chart
they're
so
always
quickly.
moving. Yeah, because they're always moving through the
Oh.
chart. Yeah. So like for example, Mars moving like through your sixth house, you're likely to probably be busy within that period.
So
With more
what is a house? What do the houses mean?
okay, each house,
Yeah.
like
No, 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 not each house. Just tell me what are the houses?
so the houses basically relate to themes in your life.
Okay. And there's
So like
12, you're saying?
there's 12. Everybody has all 12 houses. And it depends on how you use astrology. So some people use different house systems. So I use whole sign house system, which divides the houses into equal portions.
Okay.
Some people use Placidus, which is a very common house system to use where it's not even. I personally I like them both, but I like to use whole sign because I use really old astrology techniques that you can't use with Placidus. So that's why I use whole sign, more traditional techniques. But so basically, the houses, for example, the first house is all about the self. It's like about your identity. It's like who you are. It's the body. It's like your how you show up in the world, your appearance, all those things. And then you have the second house, and it's like money, finances, self worth, how you establish security, those kinds of things. So each house kind of relates to an area of your life.
And they don't move. They're stagnant. They're going to be stagnant on my chart.
Exactly.
Okay, so and depending on when I was born, let's
Uh-huh.
say my sun sign, my guess, would be born in the first house, the sixth house, the ninth house, whatever.
Yeah, so your son could be in any of the houses.
And then depending on where my sun lands
Uh-huh.
is going to affect my sense of self, let's say.
Yeah, like for sure. Like it'll kind of be like how it'll be the area in your life where you really want to shine, where you really want to be recognized, where you
Mm.
kind of place a lot of your worth.
Okay, so that's my first house.
So your son is in your
Oh, I
first
don't
house?
know. I don't know what I don't know what it is.
So you have a Libra rising,
I do.
so it would be in let me see if I can like visualize this
Oh
in
my
like
gosh, that's serious if you can visualize it.
Libra. So Aries is on your seventh. So then it would probably be your fifth house.
Which is,
Aquarius. That should be your fifth house.
and what's the fifth house?
I think that's right. So the fifth house would be creativity. It would have to
Oh,
do with like hobbies, self-expression, children.
goodness.
It's the house of fun,
Oh,
pleasure,
I'm so fun, so
joy.
pleasureful.
But you have like a youthful energy to you. So I feel like that could also
Maybe. I
be
did, my
the
Botox did just kick in. So that could be what it is.
no, it's your energy.
Okay, so talk to me about, listen, I don't understand what retrograde means at all. And I feel like Mars and Mercury are always in retrograde and they're always fucking with us. What does that mean?
So mostly it's Mercury.
Mercury,
Is
yes.
you
Yes.
mostly Mercury, but this year is different because all of the planets fucked with us at the beginning of the year.
We're so lucky.
So lucky.
Something's happening this weekend too, right? Isn't there like a Saturn something?
Yeah, and honestly, actually, I can't wait for Saturn to move, but that's a whole other thing. But basically, retrogrades, listen, retrogrades have a really bad reputation, especially because they call this like pop astrology, where like you're hearing like bits and pieces of astrology, but it's not advanced, so it comes off surface level.
Okay.
And it's basically to like pull people in. So retrogrades have a bad reputation because they are generally uncomfortable. But how I like to look at retrogrades, so for example, Mercury retrograde.
What is a retrograde? Is something moving back or
So it appears that the planets are moving backwards in the sky, and they basically move backward in the chart.
okay. Okay.
So in an astrology chart, it moves counterclockwise. When a planet retrogrades, it moves clockwise.
Okay. And is it
Okay.
going back to like an original position, or it's just going to move a smidge and then
That's
carry
a
on?
that's a really good question. So what happens is it will station retrograde at a certain degree,
Okay.
okay? And then it will retrograde into again station at a certain degree and then move back. Once it moves past that first degree that it's station retrograde, then you're out of what they call the post retrograde period.
Okay.
So there's always a pre-retrograde period and a post-retrograde period. And basically the pre is when you've hit that, you've come within those degrees that you're going to revisit again.
Hmm.
That means you're in the pre. And then the post is when you're moving back towards where it actually stationed retrograde.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a long period. So usually Mercury retrograde period are like 3 weeks, but usually there's a week on either end kind of thing. So it ends up being like 5 weeks in
And is
general.
this happening consistently, like every 5 weeks?
It happens 3 times a year, Mercury
Oh,
retrogrades.
wow. So that's why we hear about it so
That's
often.
why we hear about it so often. And the thing is, like, Mercury has to do with our communication, it has to do with technology, it has to do with transit, like how we get around, travel, all those kinds of things. And I always say the reason it's frustrating is that we as a society like to move really quickly.
Mm,
So when we have miscommunications, I always invite the idea of actively listening because usually that's what's not happening or pausing before reacting to a situation. When it comes to travel delays, we usually don't leave enough time for ourselves. So when there's a retrograde, it's a good idea to have a little bit more wiggle room. And when it comes to technology stuff, especially if it's in a tech sign, I always say back up your stuff and double check, triple
wow.
check everything before it starts because that's usually like especially like, for example, like, if you have a computer that's been on the fritz for a while and there's a retrograde coming up, I'm like I tell my clients, "Go get that fixed, like,
Come
now,
on.
before that happens, because it will break during the retrograde."
So knowing this stuff ahead of time in advance, you're really setting yourself up for success, right? Like you're getting
Exactly.
rid of any kind of blockages that may
Yeah.
possibly show up.
Yeah, and, like, and you do obviously, it happens 3 times a year, so you can't stop your life.
Right.
But you can be smart about it, like, you can try to, like, plan ahead so it's not
Right.
as aggravating as it has to be, and I always say with astrology, it's about working with the astrology, not against it, like, I don't like to subscribe to this, "Mercury's retrograde, so my life is shit." Like, no, your life is shit because you're not doing anything about
Yeah.
it. Like, the astrology is not doing anything, you
Yeah.
just have to be self-aware
Yeah.
and make those changes where it's necessary.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's like, well, not really, but it's kind of like the idea of money. It's not like good or bad. It just is, and you put the
Exactly.
emphasis on it, right? So it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of guide you, and you can choose
Yeah,
how you look at
exactly.
it and visualize it.
Yeah.
What's a conjunction? Conjunction, junction.
A conjunction is when two planets come together in the same sign at the exact same degree.
And is that a problem?
No, it's neither good or bad. It depends on who's involved, whether it is disruptive or not, to be honest. It can be both positive and negative.
So I was seeing, I don't know if this is a conjunction at all, but I was watching somebody talk about this weekend, and it's like a Saturn and an Aries. So it's like somebody's real stubborn, but it's like two opposing
Yeah, so
things.
Saturn's changing signs this weekend. So Saturn's moving from Pisces to Aries. So
Is that
Saturn
rare?
No, Saturn changes signs every 2.5 years. The reason it's a big deal is because every single planet is changing signs this year, which is very rare. Like, that doesn't happen. And Saturn and Neptune have kind of been doing this dance of like being close to each other. So they're like within orb, which is basically they're like close enough that they're almost conjunct. But when it comes to outer planets like that, they have to be exact for it to really like make a full impact. And they won't be an exact conjunction until 2026, but I still think because they're getting so close this
Yeah,
year, we'll still see some themes related to it, just not the full impact.
this is a
And
lot
it is a that one is pretty significant, I will say, especially for the world stage.
for the next 2.5 years.
Yeah,
That's shit. That's real shit. There's a lot going on in the world right now.
I will not lie, the astrology for a long time is not great.
You know what? I watch every once in a while, someone on TikTok will come up that I follow, and it's like, they're like, you got to brace yourself. The world's going to keep going. It is what it is. Like, you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. But if we're looking at, because I think it's like big change, right? Because
Soon.
everything
huge.
is
Like,
changing.
and the thing is, like, we've never experienced astrology like this before. Like, we've had certain things, like, of course, we've had Neptune and Aries before. We've had certain things, but we've never had this kind of alignment before.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think, even like though we can predict a lot of predictive astrology comes from looking at history.
Hmm.
So we're in a completely new era of like it's hard to predict what it's going to look
Right.
like because it's so different than what we've ever seen before. And I'm not into like fear mongering when it comes to
Yeah, yeah,
astrology. I
yeah.
like, try to stay away from that. But I mean, like you also get to just look at this world and be like, yeah, we're in challenging times.
Yeah.
And looking at the astrology, you're like, yeah, like things are changing like
Right.
rapidly. And I think a lot of it will have to do more with tech stuff. Like,
Mhm.
but I also think leadership is going to be a big theme. Like,
Totally.
it's just I think the way that we're used to being structured as a society is changing.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely it is. I agree
Yeah.
across the board. How do
Yeah.
you feel about predictive astrology and kind of subscribing to that? So for people who are listening, there's different kinds, right? There's predictive astrology, which is like not like Nostradamus, but kind of like there's this one woman, she's like, I see fires, I see plane crash, I see this, I see that. I'm like, that sounds terrible. But it's kind of it's nothing set in stone, but this is what you're seeing
Mhm.
versus kind of what would I don't know what you would call the other.
So there's so many different types of astrology for sure. I do use predictive techniques when I do astrology readings, but I don't like to fully subscribe to predictive
Yeah.
astrology because I don't always actually think it's helpful. And I've seen it in the past with past clients that I'm like, I don't really like what's coming out of it.
Hmm.
So I'm very careful in the way that I do astrology readings. I like to push people in a direction of what of like the realm of possibility
Right.
and like, where they can place their energy and possible outcomes. But I don't like I've heard people like I've had friends tell me, "Oh, I saw an astrologer and they told me I was gonna meet the love of my life this
Oh.
day." And I'm like,
Oh,
that's like not possible though.
that's a serious statement.
It's a serious statement and it's also not like that is not possible. Like you can't predict things so precisely like that through a
No, that's crazy. So, like someone like yourself might say, listen, in your chart at the end of this month, I see positive things surrounding love. Maybe be open to meeting new people, be whatever.
Exactly. So like I use it that way. Like so whenever I start an astrology reading, I ask what they want to focus on
Right.
because you need a focus because there's so much to look at. Sometimes people are like, whatever. And I'm like, no, you need to just give me something
Yeah.
to like pinpoint. But like I've had people ask me about work. And so we'll explore that. And the thing is, what's interesting about astrology is usually when a client is seeking you out and they're asking for a certain area, that area is being activated. That's why they're asking about it. So it's helpful. But it is helpful to know, like, for example, like the first reason that I really got into astrology and really started to like read an astrology chart is I've been single forever and I've always been like, why? And so looking at my astrology chart now, it takes a little bit of the pressure off because I can be like, oh, this is a good period to date, and this isn't a good period to date. So I can take a break during this time and not
Mm.
like burn myself out trying to go on dates when it's gonna be much more difficult to form a connection.
Right.
Whereas when like Jupiter's in Cancer in my fifth house, I'm gonna be like, let's go. Let's
Let's go.
go on the dates. So I think it's that I like it to be hopeful and
Yeah.
not daunting. Like when people are like, there's fires and there's plane crashes, like that's scary.
It is scary. And that's the thing. It can be very fear mongering and very fear based because it's the world in itself. It's easy to subscribe to the negative, to the fear, to all of it, to fall into it
Yeah.
and then feel kind of hopeless and helpless. And I think a lot of the people that I know look to things like astrology because it's bigger than you, right? Like you're looking
Mhm.
for any kind of guidance or, spirituality or hope. I don't necessarily believe in God, but something like
Yeah.
this would pull me towards because it is the logic for me, right? I'm like, this is science. This is how this goes with a
Totally.
sprinkle of spiritual. People are
Yeah.
looking for ways to find hope, to be hopeful about something.
Yeah, and I just like for me, it's just validating sometimes. Like
Yeah.
when I have a really like challenging day or like this week, I had a really hard week. And I was like, I should have known, to be honest. Like, but I don't like to look too far ahead, but Saturn is exactly conjunct my ascendant right now, and it's like brutal. Like it's a brutal position for Saturn to be, and it's basically like roadblock. So it's just been like hitting wall after wall, like
Mm,
putting in all this effort and then just like it's like one step forward, three steps back. It's kind of like been that kind of energy all week. When I look at that, I'm like, okay, when Saturn moves into Aries though, it'll probably feel a little better. Hopefully, just give me like a little bit of a break. And knowing that is like, okay, like this is just a period in my life that I have to
yes.
work through. And how can I make this easier instead of more difficult?
Right. Right. It's working with it. See, Rosanna will message me some because she has my chart. So she'll look at it periodically because she's learning as well. Right. And she'll message me and be like, how are you feeling today? And I'm like, terrible, actually. I'm having a terrible fucking day, Rosanna. And she's like, I knew it. I knew it. I just looked at your chart.
That's so
But she
funny.
won't tell me ahead of time. But she will
Yeah.
say, maybe
Yeah.
this is not a great time to start a new project. Maybe we're going to put a pin in something for this, or this looks like it's going to be positive. Maybe you and your sister are going to do something because it's the house of family or whatever, like
Exactly.
something like that, where I'm like, oh, and even if it doesn't, honestly, even if it doesn't come to fruition, I feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's how I like to use I also really like to use it to build self-awareness
Yeah,
because your astrology chart tells you so much about yourself as an individual.
totally.
And it's not like I hate this way this way that astrology can be used of being like, oh, like I'm an Aquarius, so that's
Yeah,
why I ghost you. Like no, like
for sure.
that's not productive, it's not helpful, and you're not using it as an excuse.
Hmm.
Me as an Aquarius, I know, and I hate this about myself, I can ghost, and I hate that. It's so bad. It's so bad, and I will tell people I don't do it on purpose, and if you don't hear from me, just like reach out again. Like I'm not doing it on purpose.
I am the worst at making plans and follow. I am not the social director of this crew. I'll
Yeah.
go. I'm not going to make the plan. I'm not going to follow. It's the worst.
It's the worst. And the
Even
thing is,
scheduling this, I was like, fuck, Stacey, send the email. But like, and it's not that I don't want to. I'm so excited about it, but it's just like,
yeah, but it's helpful to know that about
yeah,
yourself. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like even like as a Pisces rising, I love love and I like idealize it though and I
Yeah.
romanticize it. And so when I go on dates now, I add that in the back of my head of being like, don't idealize this
Hmm.
person. Like don't
Hmm.
put these expectations on this unrealistic
Right.
view, like kind of thing, you know? So it can help you and become more self-aware and just like better. And like it also helps you develop empathy and compassion for other people.
Yeah. And I think in terms of like obviously it's not nothing is solid and set in stone and none of these things are whatever, but where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're thinking, maybe this positive thing is going to happen today, it is going to create a positive outcome and it is going to create something beneficial. So I don't see the negative in kind of as long as you're not putting all of your weight into this, like that person thinking they're going to meet that's a lot. That's too much, maybe meeting the love of your life
Yeah, like
on
I think astrology can be used as a tool, but it shouldn't be how you're making all your life
for
decisions. Like
sure.
I really don't think you should be using astrology that literally.
Yeah.
It's not helpful and it will make you crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I even as an astrologer, I don't look too far ahead because it just stresses me out.
Yeah.
So I don't like to do that. Like I like to look at it kind of after something's happened,
Mm.
more so. Like, of course, I'd look at some things that are shifting for the future,
Sure.
but I mean, yeah, you have to be really careful with it because it can be unproductive really quickly.
But that's also why you would get a professional person who has studied it like yourself, right? To help guide. Because again, if I look at that chart, I don't know what I'm looking at, first of
Yeah,
all.
and the stuff online is
Oh,
like,
totally. I don't, this is the thing, because I'll Google, oh, my 12th house, whatever. But is that accurate? Does that make sense for me? Who knows? I don't know. But I'm going to take it at face value.
yeah, and like I always encourage people like find multiple astrologers that you
Mhm.
like and that you resonate with because they're all going to have different ways of interpreting and
Right.
we all have our own personal biases, which is important to layer on when you're reading a chart. But the way I use astrology first and foremost is when I meet an astrology client, I don't meet someone and I'm like, "Oh, you're an Aquarius sun, so you're like this.
Yeah.
You have this moon, so you're like this." I ask questions. I'll be like, "So what do you think? How do you think this shows up for you?" Like, and I'll give suggestions,
Hmm.
but I never box people in
Yeah.
because again, it's not helpful.
Yeah. It's also not black and white. It's not like
No.
this is how Gemini is. This is how, and that's it, right? You
Yeah,
and I are both Aquarius and we're probably very different in many ways.
exactly.
because of our rising. Hey, Rosanna told me about something being hidden. What does it mean if it's hidden?
Hidden. Okay, so like in the 12th house,
In the
kind of
12th
hidden.
house. It's sneaky,
Yeah,
sneaky.
the 12th house is very sneaky. And the 12th house is one of the hardest things to explain, I feel like, because it is such a hidden house.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like the house of hidden things, spirituality. It's the house of like prison, self-sabotage, like bliss, meditation, rest, recovery.
That's weird.
It's a weird house. I actually have my sun and my Mercury in the 12th house. So it's basically like when people have planets in that house, it's almost like they don't make sense to them. Like even when you try to explain it to a client, it's very interesting. You'll explain it to them and you can tell it's not
They're
fully
like, no, I
processing.
feel like mine is Venus, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's so tricky. Like I always joke, like I have my Mercury in Aquarius, and if I'm talking about a subject that I'm not like 100% confident in, I have trouble talking about things. Like if I get into a debate, I will lose all train of thought. Like I can't commute. And I'm like, I feel like that's my Mercury in the 12th house. It's like it dissolves.
Is Mercury communication?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
No, and my sun is also there. So, like,
Oh,
if you have your sun or your moon there, like, I feel like you feel kind of isolated in some way throughout your life. Like, it almost feels like a piece of you is missing, and you're
oh.
like trying to find it. But the real lesson is that it's within yourself, and you almost have to be comfortable that you're always gonna feel a little lonely,
Is
which
that how
sounds
you
like,
reconcile it? You just kind of accept whatever
yeah,
planet is in that house
basically.
might be a little bit of a slog.
Yeah, it might just be like it's a little lonely and like that's just the way it is. And that doesn't mean that you're always going to be lonely,
Right.
but there'll probably be periods of it kind of thing. And you might feel misunderstood and not to take it as personally as you do maybe.
I wish I had my chart right now. I'd be like, explain
Yeah.
everything. I think you did actually. Rosanna used it for her.
Oh, did she?
It was mine. Yeah. Her
Oh, okay,
sample.
okay.
So you did. You already know all about me.
I mean, I always save them, so it's probably somewhere there.
She said, oh, there was one other thing that was like a difficult thing to explain in astrology. It was like a shape of some kind, not a triangle or a
In conjunction?
no, I can't think of the word now. Man, I should have texted her. It's like she has one as well, and it's like a pain in the ass. She's like, this is the worst. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Square?
Is it a square? Could there be a square of something?
Yeah, I mean, squares are definitely challenging.
It had like a title. It was like a Titan, not a Titan. Anyway, Rosanna, what is it? It doesn't matter. Okay, so people come to you. I know we got to wrap it up. I'm so sorry. There's just so much to do. People come to you. They want to just have some insight, maybe. Maybe they're doing a big move. They kind of want to know when is a good time, whatever. So you're going to create what do you do? Like create a report for them? How does the rapport work? Do you have like, you'll send them a breakdown? Do they work with you consistently? How does it go?
I mean, it depends. I mean, one thing that people always ask is like, how often can you get an astrology reading? And it's like, it's often because there's so much to,
Because everything's moving.
it's always moving and there's always so much to unpack. There's just, it's like never, it's endless, endless
Right.
amount of information basically.
Right.
But basically, what I do for like an hour reading is first I get the focus of what that person wants. I always look at certain things. So I look at the first and foremost, I always look at the individual's chart so I can understand them as a person. So I know that how they're going to respond to certain transits and things and all that kind of stuff. Then I look at the transits, kind of what's going on. Of course, I focus on the transits that are impacting, like, for example, if it's someone was moving like houses, I would be specific for those areas. And then I use a couple of different techniques. So I look at annual perfections, which is a timing technique. I look at secondary progressions. I look at the solar return. There's like so many different things to look at.
You're
It's
just saying all these words. I'm like, "Whoop."
wild. So I use all of that and then we do a reading for like an hour of us like it's basically a conversation. Like I always tell people at the beginning of an astrology reading, if this is a conversation, it should just be me talking the whole
Right.
time. Like the more you give me, the easier it is for me to interpret to kind of understand where the energy is moving.
Mm.
And then once we've done that, I always record my sessions. They get it to keep forever to reflect back on. And then I give them a report about like the most important things to kind of focus on.
And what would that be? Just is that specific, case by case specific?
Usually specific case by case, but like if it was like moving homes, like I would be specific about like what would be a good time to move,
Right.
when it's like more likely that it's going to happen,
Right.
when you might experience little bumps in the roads. Like for example, if they were like to move during I don't know, Mercury retrograde or even a Mars retrograde, it's probably gonna feel much more like gruesome.
Do all of the planets retrograde?
They do, but they have different periods. So
But
Mercury
we don't
retrograde
feel them.
actually, I shouldn't say just Mercury retrogrades the most. Mercury retrogrades are felt the most because it's a personal planet, but all the outer planets always retrograde. It's just Venus and Mars that retrograde less. So Venus retrogrades every 18 months and Mars retrogrades every 2 years. That's why they tend to feel more brutal, to be honest,
Mm.
because it doesn't happen as often. Mars retrogrades are my own personal hell, to be honest. Like, I hate when Mars retrogrades, like, every time it's coming around, I'm like, "Oh god, it's" and I will be like that person, I'm like, "This is gonna suck."
And how do you know that? Is that just where something specifically falls, or
So,
you're
this is more advanced, but, like, basically, like, when you first look at an astrology chart, you look to see who's your most positive planet or beneficial planet and who's your most they call it malefic, so most difficult planet, and Mars is my most difficult
oh,
planet, so
I see.
when Mars retrogrades, he really likes to fuck with me.
And is that 5 weeks as well? Is it all kind of the same? Or it can
It's lo
be
it's long, like, I feel like it can be, like, with like, months, like,
oh,
because you get that pre-period, the post-period, like, Mars retrograded in December of
it
last
was a
year,
long one, right?
beginning of December, but we would have entered that pre-period in November, and then the retrograde ended in
I feel
February.
like Rosanna said that. She's like, This is a big one."
It was brutal, and that's why literally I was warning everybody. I'm like, "If you have work to do, get it done before the end of the year because it won't happen, like, in that period." And I told everyone, like, I was like, "If work feels slow, if you feel unmotivated, you just have to wait till the spring."
And then it comes out and you're like coming out of the curtains.
Right now, we're in the period that actually feels better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what she was saying too. It's going to be a good for me. I don't know if for the world, but June, the end of June, I think was supposed to be.
I mean, even now, like, I feel like now it's starting to Saturn moving into areas that will it's like Russian roulette. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I do think like we're getting into a much nicer, more hopeful period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many things. Okay, so people are going to find you where? What are they going to do? They're going to look you up. Do you
Yeah,
do readings still? Do you do
I do reading. Yeah, readings. I honestly am really bad at opening up my schedule because I'm have so many jobs. So I always tell people if they can't find a time, just email me or message me on Instagram and I will find a time for you.
and what
Like
is your name?
on Instagram.
Yeah.
On Instagram, it's the Wild Wandering
Imagine
Co.
I was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah,
This
who
whole
are you?
time. This whole time.
The Wild Wandering Co.
Okay.
On social media. My website is wildwanderingcreations.com. On Instagram, I'm always doing astrology forecasts.
And you're just doing kind of a general, "Hey, this is what this weekend looks like no matter what.
Yeah,
Be
exactly. And I
aware of
try to keep
this."
them kind of light and fun. Like,
Yeah.
I try not to take it too seriously. And then I always do forecasts on my Substack. So I have a Substack. It's linked again with the Wild Wandering Co. So it's found that way. You can find it on my social media. You can find it through my website. Yeah.
So exciting. I love it so much. So people are going to go read their rising signs. They're going to find out when they
Yeah.
were born, and then they're going to go read their rising signs and be so mad that it's Libra because they're Aquarius.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole experience, like, when you are like, when I found out I had a Pisces rising and a Scorpio moon, I was like, "What?" I was so mad, like, with both of those placements.
Yeah, I know
And then
Gemini's not mad, but I mean, it doesn't sound good. I was like,
yeah, but, I mean, either just Pisces and Scorpio, like, those were 2 that, like, I was like, "What?" But now I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it makes sense."
for sure. Honestly, after Rosanna did my chart and sent it, I was like, fine, fine. I guess that's me.
Yeah,
Whatever. And it totally was. It totally
yeah.
made so much sense.
And
But
I
like,
will say too, if you don't know your time of birth, you can always call the hospital.
can you?
Sometimes they keep the records. They destroy them after a certain period of time, which is annoying, or at least
Mhm.
certain. And there is this thing in astrology that they call rectifying the chart, where people like there's astrologers that specifically do this. It's very difficult and it's very expensive. There are astrologers out there that can figure out what time you were
Oh
born.
my God. Based on what?
They ask you a million questions.
Like, what was the weather that day? What was your
They
mother
ask you, like,
wearing?
life events, like, it's, like, very specific, and that's what I mean it's really hard to do.
That's serious.
Yeah,
But I
but they
mean,
can do it.
I
Wild.
guess. Good
It's
to know.
wild.
So you can
Yeah,
go find one of those or just ask your parents ideally if they're still around.
exactly. Yeah,
I found that little piece of, the picture that they take.
yeah.
Stacey, 10:04 PM. I was like, yeah, there it
Nice.
is. I
I
got
love when
mine.
people, like, have that, like, exact, like, it's
Totally. Totally. And my wife, she was like, I was born at 10. I was like, 10 though? Or 10:01 or 9:59? And then I messaged her mother and she also said 10. And I was like, I don't believe either of you.
Yeah, I know it's the, like right on the hour is tricky.
It
You're
is.
usually you're usually fine as long as it's not like at a close degree, like if it's at like
Right.
0 degree, 1 degree, or
Like
like
yours. That
yeah,
was,
yeah.
that one's no
If
good.
it's like in the middle, you're like, it's probably right.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited that we got to talk. Thank you for talking to me so late. I know
Yeah,
it's late
thanks
there
for
and it's
having me.
dinner time. You're probably starving. I feel like I know so much now.
Yeah,
So
there's
much more. I
so
can't
much
believe
to know.
it. So thank you for being on Things I Wish I Knew About Astrology. Now you know. And I can't wait for people to go and find you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having
Yeah.
me.
Next time you're
Fun.
in Toronto, maybe we'll meet in real life.
I love that.
Okay. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thanks.